Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So operational, physical, or cyber events can occur at any substation. How an entity responds and reports these actions can provide actionable intelligence for incident response and notifications across the ERO enterprise. In this presentation today, they're going to describe the links between CIP-003 Section 4 and EOP4. So I know this is going to be very informative. Josh has let me know that this team has worked super, super hard. And so I'm excited to see the presentation. I'm going to let Monica introduce the team and herself. I love hearing how Monica says her name. So I'm going to hand it over.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Bella, and I am a CIP auditor here at WEC on the High Inherent Risk Pod. I've been with WEC for almost 3 years and in the industry for almost a decade. And I know it's been a full day of great insights and sharing knowledge, so thank you for sticking with us through this session. And I'm happy to see a full room. I thought there were going to be more empty seats, so thank you for being here, and those online as well if you haven't checked out yet. We're here to talk about response strategies to operational, physical, and cybersecurity events, and to give an overview of EOP4 and CIP-003 Requirement 2, Attachment 1, Section 4. For the purposes of this presentation, I'll refer to this part as just CIP-003 Section 4. All right, and today I'm joined by a great panel. We have Tiffany King, a Senior Compliance Auditor, also on the High Inherent Risk team, and 2 gentlemen from Sacramento Municipal Utility District, also known as SMUD. Josh is a cybersecurity SME at SMUD, and Sarab, an operations SME. And this session is going to be a combination. So we'll have a simple slide deck up here for you, and then we'll go into a panel. So when we're done with the presentation, I'll give them each an opportunity to introduce themselves a little bit more. Okay. Do we have a clicker? Oh, it's over there. Thank you. Which one is it? Do you know which one it is? Okay, I didn't practice this, just in case you couldn't tell. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so we'll see the 2 sentences here. They're almost identical, but not quite. So the first one you see here is at the very top of your attachment in CIP-003 Section 4, and the second part is down to Section 4. But they're both essentially asking the entity to develop and implement a cybersecurity incident response plan. If you already have a CIP-8 program, there's an opportunity to leverage that plan for your assets containing low-impact best cyber systems. CIP-8 is a higher watermark and therefore is more robust, and we'll get a little bit into that and how that can differ when you drill down to your CIP-3 Section 4. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So let's break down the section into the part levels. I won't read through these verbatim, and I'm sure you're familiar with them, but just in case you don't already know them by heart. So the first one we have identify, classify, and respond to cybersecurity incidents, or CSIs. Pretty simple, right? Next, we have determine if the CSI is reportable. We'll look at this definition in the next slide. Identify the roles and responsibilities. Who's responsible for identifying, assessing, responding, and reporting? Handling of the CSI, ensuring that chain of custody is maintained and followed, and ensuring the data is being captured and preserved through its entirety. And testing. Following Frank's keynote from yesterday, exercise, exercise, exercise. It's not about what if it's going to happen. It's about knowing what to do when it happens. And 4.6, updating that plan with your lessons learned. Even if there are no action items that require an update to the plan, make that note in your lessons learned or in the version history of your plan. Next slide, please. All right. So let's take a look at a couple of the definitions. As Josh Rowe mentioned yesterday, the definitions are being evaluated for changes by the standard drafting team, but these are the definitions as they stand today. So a cybersecurity incident refers to broadly to any malicious or suspicious event that could impact the security of the bulk electric system, cyber system. Examples are malware detected on a jump host or unauthorized login attempts to a CIP system. These must be investigated, documented, and tracked internally. On the other hand, we have reportable cybersecurity incident. This meets a specific criterion that triggers mandatory reporting to the EISAC, the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Examples of this would be actual compromise of a system that impacts one of the BROS, Best Reliability Operating Services. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Now switching gears a bit to the operations and planning side. For EOP4, we have R1 and R2. The standard is applicable to RCs, BAs, TOs, TOPs, GOs, GOPs, and DPs, and requires the entity to report within 24 hours to the Electric Reliability Organization and other organizations such as law enforcement when an event listed in Attachment 1 occurs. In the next two slides, we'll show the event types that are contained in Attachment 1. Please note that not all of these are applicable to all registrations. Most of these are applicable to balancing authorities and transmission operators, with others being applicable to generation operators, generation owners, and transmission owners. Only one report is needed if you are registered for more than one of these. Okay. And we like to highlight some of the definitions in EOP4, which can also be found in the NERC glossary of terms. I don't know if I did that, or someone did that. Can we go to the next one, please? And one more. Okay, thank you. When we're talking about damage, destruction, or threats to a facility, the facility is defined as a set of electrical equipment that operates as a single bulk electric system element, such as a line, generator, shunt compensator, transformer. And then we have a BES emergency, which is any abnormal system condition that requires automatic or immediate manual action to prevent or limit the failure of transmission facilities or generation supply that could adversely affect the reliability of the bulk electric system. Some examples of a reportable event for BAs, a public appeal for load reduction resulting from a BES emergency. For TOPs, having system-wide voltage reduction and firm load shedding resulting from a BES emergency. Next, here on the right side, we have interpersonal communication and alternate interpersonal communication, any medium that allows two or more individuals to interact, consult, or exchange information. Complete loss of these affecting the control center for more than 30 minutes or more, for 30 minutes or more, would be an event to report. So knowing what your registered functions are and what events you must report is a crucial part of your plan. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so here we have some similarities between CIP-003 Section 4 and EOP4. The check marks are required under the standards and requirements language. Where there is not a check mark, you'll see it's not a red X either. We put in a yellow square here. Roles and responsibilities, testing, and updating the plan for EOP4, not required specifically, but definitely a best practice. How will your SMEs know what to do, who to call, and when? Making sure you have the latest and greatest information, contact information, actions to take, and criteria to assess. Okay, so we'll go ahead and leave this slide up and move into our panel discussion, where we'll talk about best practices and SMUD's implementation of their incident and event response and reporting. Right, let's start with some introductions, and I'll start with Tiffany.
Good afternoon. everyone. I hope that you're enjoying the workshop and were able to participate in the dine arounds last night to make new connections.
Tiffany, we're not hearing you.
Is that better? Is that better?
She's not hand up here.
I think the mics are tired. It's been a long day.
It's been a long day. Okay. Can you hear me? This one? None of them are working.
Test, test, test.
Oh, closer. Is this working better?
Three.
Sorry, you're good.
It's on.
Is that better? All right, I'll start over here. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're enjoying the workshop and were able to participate in the dine arounds last night to make new connections. My name is Tiffany King, and I'm a compliance auditor at WEC with the High Inherent Risk Pod. I've been with WEC for about 5 years and mainly focus on the critical infrastructure protection standards, but have been known to cross over and audit an operations and planning standard or two. Today, I'll be providing best practices throughout the panel while Josh and Sarab talk about their programs. But before I turn it over to our next panelist, we were told that Josh Rowe said we weren't going to have any jokes. So here's a joke for you. Why did the incident response team bring coffee to the command center? Because it was a Java-based attack. Hey, Josh.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Crutchman. I'm with the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, and here to talk a little bit about the CIP-003 Section 4 program and how it relates to our CIP-8 program. I've been with SMUD about 14 years. 5 years ago or so, I had an opportunity to sort of re-envision how we do incident response at SMUD. So we stood up a brand new program we call the Cybersecurity Emergency Operations Program. We took our incident response plan, which up to that point had been really CIP-8 compliance focused since 2006, and maybe we had some extensions to get that implemented. But it was really a compliance focused plan. It wasn't really preparing us for responding to the more typical case for us, really, which is enterprise cybersecurity incidents that have no reportable or compliance obligations. And so I re-architected that, rewrote our cybersecurity incident response plan from the ground up, and just kind of started with that 60, 70-page document. And since then, I've expanded it with some sub-plans and playbooks that we use for technical, a whole exercise strategy, and a lot of other things. So, yeah, happy to be here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarab Monga. I'm the manager of Power Operations Engineering at SMUD. My team does operational engineering studies. We do EIM, which is the Energy Imbalance Market support for SMUD Bank. And we also support our compliance efforts. And my team is responsible for compliance with EOP4. Really happy to be part of an organization like SMUD, which has a very strong compliance culture. You know, we have a team specific for compliance coordination, which that sets the tone for the organization. And my team works with RCNC, which is the name of the team for compliance, to meet our compliance obligations. I'll be talking specifically about EOP4 today. As Monica covered, EOP4 is designed to increase grid reliability by requiring entities to report operational, operation events. Happy to talk about that as we go along in this panel discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. So we'll go ahead and get to a few more questions. So SMUD, do you maintain a standard operating procedure or include your operating events for EOP4 in your cybersecurity incident response plan?
So I'll take that one. Yes, we do. So we have a standard operating procedure. As a BATOP, we have a lot of regulatory requirements, obligations, which are from NERC, WEC, DOE, RC West, Northwest Power Pool. Not saying there are too many, but just listing out the ones we have. So it can be confusing, so what we've done is we've done a great job of compiling all the requirements in a operating procedure, which is utilized by the power system operators and by my team, which is the power operations engineering team, which ultimately is responsible for reporting, fulfilling the reporting requirements. So Monica, the short answer is yes, we do have an operating procedure for that.
Thanks, Rob. Tiffany, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, although it is not a requirement to have a combined CIP-003 Section 4 and EOP-4 program. However, it is best practice to reference your incident response plan and processes and procedures for other standards, as Josh Rowe mentioned yesterday in his presentation. When identifying an incident or event, there could be possible crossover that requires collaboration. Also, when you include other standards, it expands communication across departments within your entity and could lead to quicker identification of a possible event and response.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to just go a little bit more into the identification. So how has SMUD defined cyber and physical security incidents?
So to answer that question, DOE and NERC, they do in my mind and in my opinion, they do a great job in specifying the different scenarios which are reportable events. DOE specifies, physical damage or a cyber security incident in their document and in the EOP for attachment 1. And that's really what forms the framework and guideline for our operating procedure. We take that, we run with that, and if an event meets that criteria, we will report it.
Thank you. And what criteria does SMUD use to determine if a security event is a cybersecurity incident?
You can take that. Part of our job in cybersecurity is to sift through the mountain of cybersecurity events that come in every single day, right? Every single minute, actually. We're constantly getting indicators of potential compromise and determining whether that's real or it's a false positive. Most of them are false positives. We're looking for that needle in the haystack. And so luckily we have a team of experts that work in our ISOC, our Security Operations Center. They're doing this all day, every day. And they're constantly looking at the event indicators and they're asking themselves, does it meet the definition of how we've defined a cybersecurity incident? If they think that it has, then they will immediately stand up our incident response team and we'll go deeper. We'll continue investigating that until we can rule out that it's not an incident or we decide that, yes, it is an incident and maybe even a reportable cybersecurity incident. And our training is always, we want them to over-report. We can always stand up the incident response team and then disband it 15 minutes later. But if they don't report it, they don't sound the alarm, then there's a risk that we're not identifying a cybersecurity incident, and that's a problem. So is there set criteria? No, I don't think there can be in this case because every case is literally a unique case. You need to have a definition of what you consider to be a cybersecurity incident and then test against that definition, and that process is going to be different every time. So.
How do you define what constitutes recognition that an event meets the reporting thresholds?
I can take this one, Monica. And I think, again, the recognition really comes from the framework founded by the DOE and NERC documents. As I said, DOE and NERC, they do a great job in setting the stage for listing the events which need reporting. And for us, that really, kicks off our effort when it's needed here. Power system operators, they are the first line of defense. They'll see an event happen, or the, personnel from the field may report that. And then from there on starts the process of, reporting any of these events. From PSO, it goes to the on-call power operations engineers, which are in my team. They'll take on the event and then analyze it if it needs reporting, and then we'll proceed accordingly.
Thanks, Rob. And Tiffany, is there anything to share for best practices you've seen at audit?
So setting up criteria to identify a CSI or a cybersecurity incident under CIP-003 Section 4 is critical in helping subject matter experts identify and recognize a potential cybersecurity incident. The definition of a cybersecurity incident starts with a malicious act or suspicious event. From there, we need to determine what is a malicious act or suspicious event. Although there is a formal definition for this, your entity should define thresholds or what it means to you. Some things to consider. How do you know if an event is malicious? Are you getting alerts from other systems, such as unexplained internal or external logins? Suspicious network traffic within a trusted environment, malware delivered or found in the enterprise or operational environment, and firewall scans. Leverage other standards that are applicable to your entity, such as CIP-5, CIP-7 for alerting, and CIP-10 for vulnerabilities or change control. And for physical security events, consider any unusual observations, theft, loss, or diversion of key safety or security items, or any threats received. And again, don't be afraid to list thresholds for events and providing examples in your plan. There is no need to list every example in your plan because we don't know every event that will occur. But by having examples, it will help your subject matter experts understand, identify, and recognize any malicious or suspicious activity and push that up to the appropriate personnel quickly. Under EOP 4, Attachment 1, the criteria is listed on whether an event is reportable or not. However, there are still some discussions that need to be had and happen behind the scenes. So adding any additional criteria or checklists to help your subject matter experts walk through whether the event qualifies as a reportable event would be helpful and help streamline the process. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And yeah, thanks for touching on the threshold. So another question for Smed here. I feel like we're in an audit and we're asking all these questions. We're giving them all away. Okay, so what thresholds have been developed to delineate normal activity against suspicious activity?
I think Josh alluded to that earlier. There's not necessarily, thresholds, but it's more case by case based on the event. As I said earlier, the thresholds for triggering the reporting of an event is outlined well in NERC, EOP Attachment 1 and in DOE form. So those are pretty explicit thresholds where if there's a loss of load greater than 100 megawatt, or if the voltage reduction is greater than 3%, it needs to be reported and stuff like that. So that's very clearly defined. I think there are some gray areas like damage to a facility. If there could be cases where you may think that reporting may not be needed. But again, as we've mentioned earlier, we tend to or prefer to over-report. Sometimes when in doubt, still report, because I think it sets a good practice and precedent within the organization and with the regulatory agencies. Anything, Josh, you would want to add?
Yeah, I would just add that, the tools that I mentioned, we have a lot of automated tools that kind of do a lot of that heavy lifting, that are looking at events that are coming in and escalating those to an analyst to that meet certain criteria. And that would be kind of like a per tool thing. But at the end of the day, it's an analyst that, it's a human that's putting eyes on that event and is determining, hey, does this look suspicious? And again, over-reporting and moving to, the next phase of our incident response plan once they determine that something meets that criteria.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. And for the next one, how do you classify events with an undetermined cause?
So that's a difficult one. I'll give it to Josh.
Thank you. We actually have a whole section in our incident response plan for calculating our severity and impact scores. And that's important because it determines what level of how high we raise the red flag, who we wake up at 3 a.m. And part of that involves assigning a category to the cybersecurity incident. So we have a long list of categories. It continues to grow as we see new things happen in reality. We have real incidents that occur. We dream up new exercises that are things that we haven't really explored before. So we're going to assign a category even if we don't know the cause. And I would say that 90% of the time we do not know the cause, at least not at first. We might eventually get to knowing the cause. Sometimes we never know the cause, and that's okay. We're still going to work our incident response process all the same. So I would say, we just continue to work our plan. We classify the incident, we assess severity and impact, and don't worry too much about the cause. Knowing that we want to get to the cause eventually so that we can eradicate, we can recover, we can prevent something from happening in the future, but knowing that we might never get there. So
Excellent, thank you so much. So yeah, you just set up your CSERT and do the whole thing without, like, we don't know yet, but we're gonna get there. So just go ahead and set up that team and get them ready to go. Okay, awesome. So going back to who do we wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning? So the roles and responsibilities. In CIP-003 Section 4, it is required to have your list of roles and responsibilities. Can you talk to us on how you develop those and how communication works, from getting the information from the SME, the boots on the ground, like Saurav said, through your criteria all the way to the reporting?
sure, I can take that. So when we re-architect our incident response program back in 2019, 2020, I was actually fortunate enough to have a number of incidents that were occurring while I was writing this plan. And it was the best training that I could have had, right, while I'm writing a plan, because I'm working incidents, I'm writing the plan, I'm like, oh, didn't think about that, right? So one of the things that came out of that kind of that cycle, that rapid development cycle, like in software development, you have, just-in-time rapid development, but it was kind of forming those teams and figuring out, okay, what are the teams that we really need? So we have 4 teams. We have our core CERT, which is our ISOC staff, and they're kind of like boots on the ground. There are responders, there are analyzers. They're the ones that are taking actions. The incident command team, of which I'm the primary incident commander, we have a number of incident commanders on the team that can step into that role, and we make sure that each person has a chance to do that during an exercise or at least a low impact incident, because that's the best training you're ever going to get in that job, is to actually work an incident. And then we have our CERT leadership team, and then we have, which is all directors at SMUD. I think there's like 11 directors that span all of our different business units, so that we have multiple perspectives. Hey, we need to shut down SMUD My Account, or a customer-facing website. What's the impact to the customers if we do that? If we need to make a decision to, I don't know, shut down a breaker or shut down a substation, what are the impacts there, right? So we make sure that our CERT leadership team is aware of what we're thinking about doing, so that they can give us feedback and help weigh in on that. And then we have our extended cert, which I always say could be anybody at SMUD. It could be our partners, it could be a vendor, it could be an FBI agent, it could be a number of different people. So the extended cert is kind of that fourth team, and all of those roles and responsibilities are documented in our plan. We do, I'll get into training a little bit later, but we just ensure that no matter where an incident comes in to our ISOC, whether it's from the FBI or from a member of the public or a SMUD employee or a SMUD customer, that we have the contact information for all the people on those teams. They know what their role is. They have a copy of the plan, and they can jump in immediately. So that's how we do that.
For EOP4, in terms of more operational scenarios, generally the communication, happens from the field personnel to power system operators, from operators to the engineers. The roles and responsibilities are fairly well defined in our operating procedure. Power system operators, they are the first line of defense. Either they know the event. Is it because of power system, operation, meaning, we have a loss of generation, or we have lost, we've shed load. So that really power system operators know that's their responsibility to manage the grid and then communicate to the on-call power operations engineer. Now, if there's some sort of a physical damage to an equipment, believe it or not, we've had some instances where gunshots to the conductors and insulators, I don't know, why would somebody get a joy out of that? But there's instances which happen like that. The field personnel or security would inform power system operators, and they would call the on-call engineer. Then on-call engineer will take on that task and then analyze the event and then proceed with the reporting if needed.
Great, thank you. And you were kind of leaning into this already, Josh, so I appreciate that. Can you talk about how you perform training at SMUD for incident response and to what extent?
Yeah, our three primary teams are the Core CERT Incident Command Team and our CERT Leadership Team. And I maintain some training collateral that I use each year to train on updates to the plan, just to reiterate that everyone knows what their role is. If we have like a new director step in, I always meet one-on-one with that person so they know what their new role is, because it's by title. So like they move into a role and now they're on the CERT leadership team, and I want to make sure that if they get woken up at 3 a.m., they know what that's all about. And then, if we have an incident commander changes, those happen pretty rarely, but that I can do that same kind of training. So we definitely provide that training at least annually. And then, of course, we do exercises. I think we're going to talk about exercises. We do at least 2 exercises that are kind of broad scale, including all the directors and all the teams. And then we do additional technical mini exercises also that kind of exercise our technical ability to respond to incidents. So through all those different things, I feel like our teams are pretty well trained, and they know their role. They're able to jump in quickly. You don't want to be training them at 3 a.m. when you kicked off the incident response team. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want them to answer that call too.
Right.
Okay, Tiffany, oh wait, hold on, let me see.
So having roles and responsibilities with contact information is essential for incident response, handling, and reporting. It's important for personnel to know who they need to contact and how those individuals can be reached. Also, if that individual cannot be reached, they need to know who to call next. Questions you should consider when documenting your roles and responsibilities. Does your entity have a primary and secondary contact? How is that communicated to individuals that would need to be or need to respond? Is that communicated via instant messenger? Is it through email or a phone call? And do you have contact lists at the ready, and not only on the network? It's helpful to have contact lists printed on the internet and at your desk so that you're able to communicate any changes immediately and to everyone who needs to know. Having a list that is not on your network is a best practice in case there's a network outage. Also include contact lists for other organizations requiring notification. Updating your contact list or testing your call tree should be performed regularly. You don't need to wait to make those changes during the required 36 calendar months of testing of your plan. When you perform these changes, if the contacts are directly in your plan, make sure you capture the version history.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do not wait to update your contact information every 3 years. That is not advisable. So we've talked about the criteria and roles and responsibilities. We'll go ahead and move on to the reporting stage. So what steps does SMUD take in an event that is reportable? So we know who we need to report to, but can you talk about the steps and how you do that?
For EOP4, once the determination is made that the event is reportable, the on-call engineer or the POE engineer would file a form called DOE 417. And then, NERC accepts or has approved the acceptance of DOE 417 in lieu of attachment 2 form. So we don't have to, if you're filing DOE 417, you don't necessarily have to repeat that and fill out attachment 2. The same can be, the same form is accepted by NERC. The mechanics are, there's an online access, form. You can, you have to have a username, password to DOE website, and you're able to file DOE 417 online. If that, online process does not work, we have a backup is a physical form. You can download and email that. And in terms of internal communication, what we do is we've outlined it in our operating procedure who needs to be notified after DOE 417 has been, filed. So we obviously send an email to DOE. We'll send the evidence to, NERC. We'll include WEC in there as well. So I think a good practice would be to make sure all these emails are kept fresh and they are listed well in the operating procedure. In terms of external communication, from a reporting perspective, if there's a physical damage or something, which needs communication to FBI or Homeland Security, the external communication team does that for us in terms of reporting.
Yeah, and on the incident response side, we start with an enterprise-focused incident response plan so that we are working incidents the same way every time, no matter if it's critical infrastructure or reportable, or if it's your generic phishing email, right, that's just, or business email compromise, or just any of the normal stuff that we all get. One of the things that we did when we re-architected this was introduce the concept of what we call subplans, and they're like modular things that they're modular plans that we can plug into our main incident response plan when certain criteria are met. And one of those is our critical infrastructure subplan. And so that's where all of the NERC CIP compliance and reporting comes in. So if there's something that's critical infrastructure related, then we automatically activate the subplan. And we have all of the rules and procedures for how do we file the OE 417 and who needs to approve that. We only have an hour to do that on high and medium impact. So we've made sure that we've streamlined that completely. I can authorize the issuance of an OE 417. I don't have to go to a director or a CIO to ask for permission to do that. So things like that, we have all that documented and streamlined so we can make those reports quickly.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I appreciate you talking about also the internal communications that you're doing and other external communications. So it's not just those in the standard language. And has your entity established QA/QC methods to verify that the events that are reported to the identified entities within the timeframe specified by the standard?
I'll talk about the EOP4. So, I would say we don't have any specific QA/QC methods established. We are in the small medium entity section here, being a small medium entity. Looking at the data for last few years, I've seen on an average maybe 2 to 3 times we've had to file DOE 417. We have good training program. The operators are trained well. The engineers are trained well. So, the events which we've observed have been reported on time. So we necessarily haven't felt the need of having a specific QC, or a quality assurance program around it. We do go back and check and make sure that the forms are filled out on a timely manner.
Yeah, and on our side, we have a checklist at the end of each, what we call phase, which maps to the kind of NIST Computer Security Incident Handling Guide. And at the end of each one of those phases, we have a checklist that goes over all the steps that need to happen. And this is definitely one of those steps on the checklist. So I think the checklist helps when, you're kind of in the thick of incident response, to make sure that someone's always assigned to looking at that checklist. Okay, have we done this? Have we done that? Have we done that? And it makes it really easy to go down and see that we've missed something with those.
Yeah, thank you. Tiffany, is there anything you'd like to add here?
When it comes to event reporting, you want to add as much information related to the incident or event as possible. Things to keep in mind are making sure to include what authorities have been notified for physical and cyber events, as well as if the RCBA were notified, including amount of load loss for equipment and facility outages, equipment or voltage levels of equipment impacted or operated. And for EMS events, were monitoring and or control capabilities degraded, and were notifications made pertaining to RTA coverage and any other critical information regarding the event. This will help avoid additional outreach to obtain more details regarding the event. And you also want to keep records of the notifications, who reported the event, when it was reported, and what communication methods were used. Make sure you keep submitted forms and any responses received.
Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah, we definitely want some good data in there. Okay, so we'll move on to the testing phase now. So your 36 calendar testing or sooner. And I'll combine these two questions. So how do you select realistic scenarios for your testing? And how do you coordinate with other business units to conduct that testing? And how often do you do it?
For me, I always look at what's happening in reality. So, we get the reports from industry, we get the reports from our law enforcement partners. I want to do exercises that are mirroring what's happening in the real world. But sometimes I also like to just kind of like make stuff up, come up with a scenario that's maybe a little bit far-fetched, but not really, it just isn't really widely talked about yet. I think those are the best kind of scenarios because they are completely, come out of left field, and it's like, yeah, I haven't really thought about that. I like to do stuff with, I don't know, equipment destruction, because I feel like in a coming cyber war someday, that's going to be kind of the first thing to happen, right? So I'm always looking at, how could I blow up a transformer from North Korea? And using purely cyber means, nothing kinetic. So I don't know, that's just me. But I try not to do too many of those because there's always going to be the people in the exercise that are like, that could never happen. That stuff doesn't work that way, but it's fun to think about and kind of expand your capabilities too. So,
Thank you. And do you use do you combine it with your medium and high, your testing? And if you do, how does that differ when you test for your low impact?
we do combine. Our scenarios really are general enough to apply to low, medium, or high. a lot of the, the attack scenarios that we're thinking about are going to start probably on the enterprise side and then move into our critical infrastructure side. The bad guys don't really care necessarily, well, like, I guess they do, but, the attack vectors are going to still be the same, whether it's a low or a medium and high. And a lot of times our scenario are focused on that attack scenario. So we do a combined test generally.
Okay, thank you. And remind me, I know you mentioned it earlier, you had some mini tests throughout the year. How often are you testing?
We test
Your
at least twice a year. We have one that's enterprise focused, and then we have one that's critical infrastructure focused and results in a reportable cybersecurity incident per the CIP standard.
Great, thank you. And so still on the testing, do you ever test with alternate individuals? So you have your main POC and they're out of office. How do you ensure that individuals are aware of their roles and responsibilities if they're notified they're a backup?
Yeah, there was a time when they wanted to make me the main POC, and I didn't like the idea of that because if I'm on a beach somewhere, I don't want to be called, to do incident response. So I have resisted that heavily, and we don't have main POCs. We have teams, and I think teams are essential. They all need to be trained. They all need to be backing each other up. You can never rely on one person for this. That person might be snoozing, and right, their phone's on do not disturb. You are not going to get in touch with that person. You need to have a backup to the backup. Really important in incident response. So.
Yeah.
I think
Backup to
one
the
thing,
backup.
one thing I want to add is, I think something similar on the EOP4 side is my team, originally we used to have the shift senior, which is a shift manager, do the reporting of the event. And it just felt that it was too much work for them to do and make that assessment while things are, hot in terms of an event. So that has shifted to the on-call engineer, and then on-call is, it's a rotation program, so everybody gets the training and, part of the testing or the program. So it's not just one person POC, but the entire team, on-call team is, capable and able to file their forms and do the reporting. We do have one SME, but again, it gets, rotated within the on-call team. So there's not necessarily one POC. So I wanted to highlight that that's a good practice.
Yeah, great, thank you. And then Tiffany, do we have any best practices?
Josh has already mentioned some of the really good practices. And to follow Frank's emphasis yesterday in his keynote, exercise, exercise, exercise. We may sound like a broken record, but stress test your plan. You want to get the most out of your testing and get close to real life results. It's not, will this happen? Can we get attacked? It's when will this happen? And how can we be best prepared to handle that attack and mitigate the risks exposed? There's no requirement under EOP4 to have testing or training, but how will your subject matter experts know how to identify incidents, what actions to take, and who to contact? Your operators should understand when a cyber or physical event triggers EOP4, and training is a good preventive control. If you're using your CIP-8 Cybersecurity Incident Response Plan for testing requirement, the CIP-3 requirement, Section 4, remember to add low impact injects into your exercise.
Great, thank you, Tiffany, thank you. Thank you all. And absolutely, just like Josh mentioned yesterday, the bad guys are not always going to attack during business hours. So again, just stress your test off hours on the weekends. I know nobody wants to do that, but we really want to be prepared. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the last portion here for information sharing. Does SMUD participate in any industry groups for information sharing? And if yes, what are those?
Yeah, we participate, the EISAC, we share information with the EISAC, and we get reports and actionable intelligence from EISAC. Along with our FBI partners, we maintain a close relationship with them. Multiple resources from SMUD have been out to FBI and vice versa. They've done, tours of our facilities. So So those are some primary ones. We also have our, our vendors, and a lot of times they'll have actionable threat intelligence and things that we can look for, and to do that kind of information sharing.
On the operations side, speaking for EOP4, TPNO, which is the Transmission Planning and Operations Team, which I'm part of, we participate in a lot of drills with RC West, slash CAISO, also with other, BAs to simulate, emergency assistance or different other scenarios where the incident response may get, triggered.
Great, awesome, thank you. And now for another big question. What challenges have you faced with incident response and what keeps you up at night?
I would say knowing the technical steps to follow when you're in the middle of an incident response, you don't want to be devising that kind of plan on a technical level. So one of the things that we've done is developed a lot of playbooks, which are the technical steps. Okay, let's say even something as simple as like a lost laptop. Yes, we have a lost laptop playbook because that happens all the time. And we want to know exactly the steps that we need to take that. I don't want to put that in my 70-page incident response plan, but I want it documented somewhere. So I've documented those as playbooks, and I think that helps. But I think what keeps me up at night is what didn't I document? What are the playbooks that I haven't thought about yet? Right. And of course, nation states keep me up at night. That's the main thing that I'm worried about. Well-funded nation states. SMUD, and no utility can compete against a well-funded nation state. So that keeps me up at night, but that's just the reality that we all have to deal with. And then the only other thing I would say is just like on a more practical level, the internal communications. Who do we communicate with at what level? We don't want our executives to feel like they have to be involved, but we also want to communicate to them so they know what's going on. So just kind of finding that right balance. And over the years, we've kind of honed that in and been able to get better at it, but it's been a challenge to get to this point.
I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think the evolving threat landscape, I think with the advent of AI, it's just unclear how it could be utilized for any, malicious intentions. I think that's something all of us need to be thinking about, and something for us to have I guess, a playbook for, or we can't have a playbook for, but we just need to, have that on back of our mind on how we're gonna approach those scenarios.
Thank you. I'm gonna try this one more time. No. Next slide, please. All right, so we've listed a few resources up on the slide for you to get, if you haven't gotten started, to get started, or to just continue building your plan and for more guidance. And Tiffany's going to talk a little bit more about EISAC.
The EISAC encourages the reporting of all incidents identified within an entity, whether it's copper theft or reportable cybersecurity incident. The EISAC's primary focus is to gather information from the entities and track that data. They can provide it back to you to provide trends at your entity and the geographical area. You can voluntarily share information or provide it anonymously, and the portal provides information to help its users monitor, mitigate, and respond to emerging and current threats to the grid.
Thanks, Tiffany. And just in case you haven't heard, for whatever reason, GridX is happening next month. So registration has reopened, and they have a GridX in a box option. I know, just in case you haven't heard. But the best part is that you don't have to do it next month. You can still sign up for it, and you can do it at your own time when you're ready to do that. And And to close it out, when in doubt, report. So thank you for our panelists for joining us today. We really appreciate the collaboration. And with that, I think we have a whole 5 minutes for questions. Oh no, Josh has a question. You're supposed to be answering the questions.
It's no shocker that I would have a question on this. Can I have a copy of your playbooks, Josh? No, he's going to say no. You mentioned something about the attachment 2 and the DOE 417 and streamlining that approach to where you don't have to seek approval to submit those, because meeting those 1 hour thresholds for the timelines from the time that the incident was reported is really difficult to meet, especially in a stressful environment where you have activities that are still being investigated. How did SMUD go about getting that transferred down to your level so you have the authority to make that decision? Because I think it kind of be beneficial for the other utilities to understand how they can use that information with their leadership so they can report back or report those incidents in a timely manner rather than waiting till 59 minutes to hit submit so they're compliant.
Well, the incident commander actually at SMUD has been given quite a lot of authority actually. And I think that's important in an incident handling scenario, that one person has the ability to say, yes, shut down our customer facing website, or shut down, a section of the grid even. We can't be waking up executives seeking approval, and there may not even be a clear delegation of authority for who can make that decision. So the incident commander actually has pretty broad authority to do a lot of customer-facing actions that could have far-reaching consequences. But I think that's important. We have our CERT leadership team. They're there to help guide us as incident commanders and help us understand the impacts. But at the end of the day, is one person has that authority to make that decision. It's the incident commander, and they're able to make that OE 417 report and do just about anything else on SMUD's behalf. So.
Yes,
Since
Bill.
Josh, since Josh asked a question, I will. So I'm one of those lowly senior technical advisors that'll probably get this. Great presentation. I like what keeps you awake at night, because I reported on one of these workshops about 2012 about a unfortunate discovery of a router burning up in a critical infrastructure facility, only to learn that when they called for support, well, that doesn't belong to you. That belongs to somebody else in this country. That led to the discovery of that being completely counterfeit. So it's not my question, but it was really good to listen to this. And I looked at the FERC order and how this evolved, how these incident response plans and the compliance have evolved since I was an auditor. But my question is, because of that tight timeline, you got to make a decision, right, to report. And I would be a practitioner when I was in cybersecurity. I'd rather report than miss the mark. But if I use my incident response plan to decide to make that report, and then through the exercise of that, I find out, well, it really wasn't reportable, do the entities still get credit for having exercised that incident response plan? Because the key word there says it's reportable. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to report quick, because as Josh says, if I hit 59 minutes and I'm not sure, maybe I should report. But does that still count as an exercise of the incident response plan?
Yes, that would count as an exercise, because you are going through the whole process. And even though the end result was not reportable, you still went through that process. So
Yeah.
yes, absolutely take credit for that.
Cool. Thank you.
1 minute.
I have a question on behalf of RCNC from SMUD. Was this an audit for us? Or a self-guided self-certification?
Pass, right?
I was afraid you were going to ask that question, Lennon, for sure.
Lennon, can you say the joke?
Is this Monica's joke? What does Josh call it when there are no findings in an audit?
What?
It's not started yet.
It has not started yet.
Thank you so much to our presenters. Didn't they do a great job?